All right, so I'm a bracket up for. I have the bracket and the actual results up. So we'll start with talking about your bracket a little bit. So, how is your bracket so far?
It's not been too bad. I, for the most part, had the first round. I would probably say three-fourths correct. I mean, there weren't too many upsets, I would say, as usual, probably. But I think, the biggest bracket buster, if you want to call it, for me would be UK.
Mm-hmm.
But I had them going to the Elite Eight. So, I mean, it hurts a little bit, but not too much. But, I mean, outside of that, it's been pretty much chalk
Yeah.
um, for maybe 3 or 4 games here or there.
I definitely overthought. This has been the first year where I have not been too accurate, and it's probably because I overthought a lot. There were some where I should have gone with my gut, and some where I shouldn't have gone with my gut. And I know you probably think the same thing with some. Some of the ones that I chose that I shouldn't have gone with my gut is I thought that Drake was going to win against Washington State. I'm looking here. I thought that Florida was going to win, which, that's a 7 seed beating a 10 seed, but that's okay. Um, I should have gone with James Madison over Wisconsin. I originally had that, but then I was looking at how Wisconsin did in the Big Ten tournament and thought that they could come up hot, and they did not. James Madison's one of those teams that's just like surprising. Another one is Grand Canyon, because Grand Canyon like shocked a bunch of people, but I had a feeling that they would make a little run. I thought that McNeese State would get Gonzaga first round, and so that's hurt my bracket because Gonzaga is Gonzaga's hot right now. But another one that I kind of boldly chose is, even though that they made the second round, I thought that Sanford was going to get Kansas, and then I thought Sanford was going to get McNeese State, so that hurt my bracket a little bit. But
Yeah.
were you able to watch the Kansas Sanford game?
So I had went up to the Indianapolis first round. Um, so we were driving up when that was happening,
Hmm.
and I was able to catch the back half of it. I at first, when we were driving up, I saw that it was pretty much a blowout
Yeah.
the first half, and they come back, and then obviously you had that controversial call at the end, which I guess we can discuss that now.
Yeah.
Um, it's a blatant call to miss. I mean, first of all, um, it was all ball in my perspective, and
Hundred
any
percent.
other perspective I saw. And even if it wasn't, rule of thumb is, if you hit the player's hand, the hand is part of the ball,
Yeah.
especially blocked like that. Um, there was no head contact. There was no body contact. The ref had a perfect view of it. If the call is not made, Sanford has 13 seconds, and they're going to be on a 5-on-4 because the Kansas player is down on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're hot. And I just want to say that the inbounds play they had before that
Beautiful.
to get three was one of the most beautiful out-of-bounds plays I've seen in a long time.
Beautiful.
Executed perfection. Um, I think, a lot of people have been talking about the Sanford coach, and just from that game and the way they were able to keep their poise and get back in it says a lot about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they got screwed at the end. Now, obviously, you can say, you don't know if they're going to hit that shot at the end if the ref doesn't make the call, but
Right.
to have that chance taken away is definitely not what you want to see in March Madness.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a hard call to make, but I mean, looking back, the instant replay showed it. But if you've got a guy who goes up for a dunk and falls on his face, it looks like a foul. But I still think that like because it was Kansas against Sanford, you kind of got peer pressured into making that call. But so what games did you go to? Remind me.
So the first one was Western Kentucky Marquette.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I work over at Western Kentucky right now while I'm in school, and so made the trip down there to go watch the boys. And it was a really close game. Western looked the best they've looked all year in the first half, and
Mm-hmm.
after you're like, well, it's March. They got a chance, and then Marquette just overwhelmed them too much in the second half. They sped them up, created some turnovers. I think we finished with 17 turnovers in the game, and if you're wanting to beat the number 2 seed, you're not going to do it that way.
Right.
Thoughts were gone from Marquette in the second half. They outscored us by 27. But it was fun to watch Marquette in person, so that was cool to see. And then the other game we got to watch was Florida, Colorado, and that was a heck of a game.
Heck of a game.
It was fun to be there to watch that happen. The final minute was one of the most exciting minutes of basketball that I've seen in person.
Mm-hmm.
And just the crowd overall was good too, because the Purdue fans were there, and obviously they took over Indianapolis, and so that was a fun game to watch. And then we left after that, and we just headed back for the weekend.
Is that your first time going to NCAA tournament games?
My first one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I haven't been to. I mean, I've been to a lot of college basketball games, and I've been to some NBA games, but I've never been to a March Madness. So I mean, that's got to be one on the bucket list.
Oh yeah, I mean, I never thought my first one would be to go see Western Kentucky. I always thought it would be to go see Kentucky.
Right.
Obviously, being a big fan of Kentucky and being born and raised in Lexington, but I'm lucky to have the opportunity to go just because I work around Western, so I have that opportunity.
Right.
So I had to take.
Speaking of Colorado, you saw them play. I don't have the stats up, but one of the projected lottery picks is Cody Williams. What did you think about him?
I thought he played really well. Obviously, I haven't been able to watch a lot of him this year just because, it's Pac-12 and a lot of their games are on late at night.
Right.
And he's been injured on and off throughout the year, but I thought for a freshman, I thought he played really well, and you can see the capability he has and the ability that the NBA scouts are happy about. He finished that game with 9 points, and I'm watching him right now in the Marquette game.
Mm-hmm.
It's halftime. I think he has 6 points right now at half, but he's playing control. He's playing with poise. He's not letting them speed the game up for him. He's just taking everything at his own pace, and he's a good shot maker. He can finish around the rim with his size, being small. Obviously, his brother is Jalen Williams with the Thunder, so he has that background. He has that genetics with him as far as his family goes. But I like how he played. I thought he was a good player to watch.
That's a lot of athleticism in that family.
Yeah.
I'm looking at here. Who we'll transition over to this. With I'm guessing, do you have more than one bracket?
Yeah, I filled out a total of 5 this year.
Look at you. Who is the most consistent team that you have winning or in the championship or Final Four even?
I have UConn in the Final Four of every single bracket.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard not to pick them.
Yeah.
They played Stetson in their first game, and yeah, they won by 40, but it was impressive. They were up I don't know the exact score at half, but it was 51 to 19 or something like that at half. And Danny Hurley was interviewed at half, and he was mad about how they played. And it's a coach to be mad about you being up 30 at halftime that says something about the kind of team they have.
Right.
They're going to play Northwestern today. I think they'll cruise and win in that one. Obviously, it's a tough matchup with Boo Buie and a couple other players on our team, but they lost their second best player early in the year, so I think depth will catch up to them today against UConn. And then I think UConn's toughest team to play before the Elite Eight was Auburn, and then they got bounced by Yale,
Yeah.
which they should have never lost that game. They choked that game so bad. So I think they'll handle whoever they win. Whoever wins in that game between San Diego State and Yale, and then I think they'll probably end up playing Illinois in the Elite Eight. I think that'll be a good game, but I think UConn's just been so consistent all year, and not too many flaws to be shown in that team. So I think that's the most consistent team I have in every bracket.
Mm-hmm. On a side note, the SEC has taken a beating for the most part in the first and second round of this March Madness. It's crazy to see from us being kind of SEC fans with Kentucky mainly, but you look at Auburn, and Auburn's been hot, and they lose to Yale. And then,
Yeah.
of course, that Florida-Colorado game was up in the air. But I'm trying to see who else. I mean, A&M's been hot. Texas A&M's been hot. I mean, they manhandled Nebraska. Let's see here. Of course, Kentucky lost to Oakland, which, I mean, we'll get into that. But South Carolina losing to Oregon, while one player for Oregon has 40.
Yeah, former South Carolina player, too.
Yeah, former South Carolina player. Yep, that's right. Of course, Tennessee's making it far because Tennessee is a dominant team. Trying to see. Alabama had a decently close one with Charleston, but I mean they had most of that game. I am anxious to see that Grand Canyon Alabama game because Grand Canyon kind of has a slower paced offense, and like I mean their defense is solid, and Alabama is just like one of those teams that like, oh, if we get scored on, we're just gonna go and score on you again. I mean their defense is just not really existent a whole lot. I compared Alabama to Kentucky this year because both teams have guys that can score, but they have inconsistent defense. And like I said, I mean if we're gonna get scored on, then we're just gonna go ahead and score on you and just even it out. But Grand Canyon is very like consistent. I mean they've been good all year. And then with SEC, you've got Mississippi State losing first round, which, I mean, they're kind of inconsistent this year, but I mean they deserve to be there. But you can't go against Izzo, even though he lost in the second round last night. I mean, Tom Izzo is always a solid coach. But the consistent ones, so I only did 2 brackets this year, and I always have one. I mean, I'm guessing you do too, where the Cats win it all.
Yep.
But in my more realistic one, I have Houston winning over UConn in this one because both of those teams have been very consistent all year. I mean, I know that Houston got demolished in the Big 12 championship, but I mean they've only lost 3 or 4 games this year, and that's the only time I'm pretty sure that they've lost by 20, 30 points. And then UConn has only lost probably like 2 or 3 games too. So I mean those 2 have been consistent all year. In my final 4 I have UConn and North Carolina and Houston and Creighton. Creighton is one of those teams. I know that Creighton played a double overtime game against Oregon. I want to say that was last night, which that can be a game that makes you tired. But Creighton is one of those teams that can shoot the lights out. And I mean they've been pretty consistent all year. They've had some hiccups here and there, but that Creighton Tennessee game is going to be a game to watch because both of those teams have been fun to watch this year. Both have some shooters, and of course with Tennessee you've got Dalton Connect, has been solid. Like, I mean he's probably second in the Wooden Award. But yeah, my final 4 is Houston, Creighton, UConn, and North Carolina. So let's transition over to. I mean, I know it's probably going to be obvious, but who do you think wins the Wooden Award or Naismith Award? I mean, the Player of the Year.
I think we have to give it to Edie as much as I don't want to because.
Right.
Personally, I don't like his style of play, but it seems like the media and everyone wants to give it to him for just the reasons of his dominance, being 7'4" and being able to play the way he does.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was to give it to someone else other than Edie, I would probably agree with you and go with Dalton Connect. I think he's NBA ready to go start right now if he were to go get drafted today. He's got an incredible shot. He rises up over whoever's guarding him. He can finish at the rim with anyone. He's athletic. He can knock down from 30 feet and beyond. You almost have to guard him once he crosses half court. And the way that he's been able to help Tennessee, and they can get stagnant at some times on the offense. Vescovi hasn't been the player that he was in the past.
No.
They're coming off the ACL, and he's starting to get back to his original self, but still lingering a little bit from that injury. Josiah Jordan James, he'll give you 9 to 12 points a game. And then Jonas Adu has been an improved player this year from last year. I still think he has a little bit of improving to do, but Dalton Connect can go out there and drop 40 if you need him to, or he can go out there and drop 20, and the other guys will go out there and help perform with them. You just never know, but
Right.
he's carried them a long way to where they are today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with that, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you mentioned is what I'm just going to emphasize here. Dalton Connect has had probably about 4 or 5 39, 40-point games. I mean, that's pretty rare in college basketball. I mean, if you have one 40-point game, like, it's awesome. Like, I mean, people are going to talk about it. But this dude has had, I mean, on the top of my head, I know he's had 2 39-point games. And, of course, he had 40 against Kentucky, even though that they lost. I mean, that dude is trying to will Tennessee to win. I mean, and also, like, he's a grinder. I mean, he went to Northern Colorado last year, played there a couple years, and before that, I'm pretty sure he went NAIA. So, like, that dude that dude deserves, like, everything that he's wanted. And, like you've talked about, he can create his own shot, catch and shoot. He's athletic. I mean, I almost compare him to Booker a little bit, like Booker in the NBA, not Booker in college. Because Booker can create his own shot, he can knock down shots, and also, I mean, Booker, like, I know that he doesn't show it a lot, but I mean, Booker's athletic and he can, like, get to the rim. I mean, that's my good comparison there.
I like that.
Yeah. So, we'll go into this one. So, what are some of your favorite games that you've watched so far?
Favorite games that I've watched so far. I would say the Dayton Nevada one was good. Just because for a team to be down to 17 with 7 minutes to go, I mean, you gotta do something. And they kicked it into gear and went on a 20-0 run to win the game.
Right.
Don't see that very often. I mean, sometimes you see a 20-0 run in a 116 or 215 game, but in a 7-10 game with 7 minutes left in the second half, and you go on a 20-0 run to finish the game, I mean, that was really, really impressive to watch. I thought they showed a lot of poise, and I thought they did again yesterday, too, against Arizona, where they almost made the comeback.
Mm-hmm.
I think another good game was last night between Creighton and Oregon, the double overtime game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had 2 players for Oregon, and Cousinard and N'Faly Dante carrying the team, and they did everything they could to get the win, but they just ultimately, at the end of the game, ran out of gas.
Right.
And then, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, because it pained me to watch the game, was UK and Oakland.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen a player go 10 for 20 for 3. I mean, that's a team stat line that you see in a game. And just the way, like, it seemed like he was more comfortable shooting on the run and with his body leaning to his side than he was just straight up.
Right.
It was back and forth. No team got a greater lead than 7, I think. And, yeah, at the end of the game, I went to my bed and I just looked at the wall for an hour in the dark. I'm just depressed about, UK losing again for the 4th time in 5 years. But it was an exciting game to watch, and a lot of people fell in love with Golke that day.
Mm-hmm. Some of the ones that stick out to me, or in the first round, South Carolina and Oregon. Like I said before, like Cousinard had 40, and N'Faly Dante had like 21 and 8, 22 and 8, and I mean they got away from it at the end, but I mean it was close the whole way. I mean South Carolina was battling the whole time with them. Kansas and Samford, like I mentioned, Samford was down 22, and they bring it to within 1 with like 30 seconds left or something like that. And they kind of got hosed at the end. It was kind of sad to see, but I mean, the fact that like that whole stadium wanted Samford to win, and they were going crazy in there. To see a mid-major like that, I mean, they are a mid-major. To see them like get all the fans to get into it and like try to will to a win against Kansas, preseason number 1, number 4 seed coming into this tournament, like, and put up a fight like that. I mean, that was awesome to watch. On the other side, I'm trying to see here. I'm scrolling through the bracket. I mean, of course, Auburn and Yale. I didn't watch a whole lot of that because I was on the road. But I mean, anytime that you see an Ivy League school beat a SEC championship team, I mean that's crazy. But Oakland's run in general was crazy to watch. I mean, like I said, like we've talked about, with us being Kentucky fans, we're kind of in our depression mode. But seeing, I mean, Oakland had a nice 1-2 punch that was so underrated. And because, like, the game last night, I don't know if you watched NC State and Oakland play, that game went into overtime. That was a fun game to watch. I know that Golke didn't shoot as great, of course, against Kentucky. But, I mean, Oakland had a 1-2 punch of Golke either running around the whole 3-point line waiting for a catch and shoot, or you had Trey Townsend down low who could back his guy down and just get like a nice little jump hooker and one layup. I mean, that's what Kentucky had a problem with, because if they were trying to defend Golke, then Townsend would go down and get a bucket. I mean, and Townsend is one that, I mean, I know that Golke has the light shined on him for going off, but Townsend who was one who had 38 points in their conference championship game. I mean, that dude is a bucket as well, and I mean, it showed in his tournament. But that game last night between Oakland and NC State was one for the ages too, because you had two guys coming into this tournament. I mean, two teams coming into this tournament who had big stories. I mean, of course, both won their conference championships. Oakland beats the University of Kentucky with a coach who has coached 42 years at Oakland, started whenever they were D2, and to beat University of Kentucky, who is known as one of the greatest like basketball traditions in general, in the first round. And you've got NC State, who came in as a 10 seed in the ACC tournament, wins the whole thing with a 6'10", 275 center. 275-pound center, and they win first round as the 11th seed against the 6th seed. I mean, this is a storybook game, and for that to be in the second round of the tournament, I mean, it shows that this is an awesome tournament. And I mean, DJ Burns would just back people down, and then just if he didn't have a layup opportunity, he'd kick it out. And I mean, that was a fun game to watch. I don't know if you watched that one.
Yeah, I watched it last night. I mean, Townsend, if he wants to, he has a year left. He can go to a Power 5 and play if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 31 points against any team is impressive, but to do it against NC State and against DJ Burns is impressive. And then he also had either 17 or 20 against UK. And now I know UK's post presence isn't what it usually is this year, but it's still impressive to do. And I thought the way NC State guarded last night against Golke was perfect. I think that's exactly what UK should have done. Now, obviously, UK's defense isn't as well, but they were physical with him. They were attached to his hip. They were switching without even having to talk, so obviously they had communicated that before the game. I thought the final minute was bizarre, just back and forth, and then, you got some calls here and there that you could agree to disagree on.
Right.
And then, just the overtime, I think Oakland just ran out of gas at the end, even though, like you said, NC State had to win 5 games in 5 days in the ACC tournament and then turn right back around. And now they've won 7 games in 12 days, which is insane. And, I mean, if Colorado were to win this game that's on right now against Marquette, you could have a DJ Burns versus Eddie on Colorado, the dude who played for TCU last year. He's a big man too, which would be a fun matchup. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely an exciting game to watch last night.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into some head coaching changes here. First one being Florida Atlantic's coach Dusty May. It got announced today that he got hired by Michigan, which, of course, with us living in Kentucky, there were a lot of rumors about Dusty May going to Louisville. So, with that being said, first off, what do you think about Michigan's hire? And two, who do you think the Louisville tries to go after now?
I think it's a good hire for Michigan. Like you said, I thought he was going to go to Louisville. Everything was pointing in that direction, and apparently, from everything that I read, Louisville thought they were getting him until last when Michigan upped their offer. I think Michigan's a better job right now than Louisville, just because Louisville is in a dumpster fire right now of how their program's going.
Right.
You know, they're paying 3 coaches right now, and they don't even have a head coach. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. Obviously, FAU was in Conference USA for my first 3 years of college before they went to the American Athletic. So I got to watch their teams for a few years, and he's a heck of a coach. He always came into our arena and gave us a heck of a game. And the thing about it is, like, Michigan lost a lot of their recruits, and a lot of their good players are transferring, but FAU's main core, I mean, they were all juniors, so now that their coach is gone, they can get in the portal and play immediately. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to Michigan and followed him, and then he hit up some more players in the transfer portal and put together a team that could compete in the middle of the pack for the first year of the Big Ten. So I think he'll definitely do that. I think it was a hire. I think I saw on Twitter this morning that his contract is 5 years for about $3.9 million per year. So, I mean, if you're Louisville, that probably says that you don't have that much money to pay a coach right now. So Michigan obviously didn't have to up that much money. But I think for Louisville, if I was going to hire a coach right now, there's not many good ones. I mean, not good, but not great ones out there. But I like what USF's coach did.
Yeah.
You know, at Kennesaw, did a great job there. Probably should have won their NCAA tournament game last year against a really good Xavier team. And then this year went to USF, was predicted to finish last in the American Athletic, finished first, got to the semifinals of their conference tournament, and probably should have beat Temple, but for whatever reason they lost. And then now they're in the NIT right now, and they're doing pretty good. And just the development that he did at Kennesaw in his first year at USF was really impressive, and I think he would be a good hire for them.
One thing that you mentioned that is kind of similar to this is how you talked about FAU's players being like more upperclassmen and thinking about transferring. You know who did that is Shaheem Holloway with St. Peter's going to Seton Hall.
Yeah.
There were, I want to say, about 3 to 4 players that went from St. Peter's to Seton Hall. So I mean that's a good point with that. The other one is I don't really have. I mean that your USF one is great idea. I don't have one at the top of my head because who knows? I mean, because a lot of these like hypothetical ones are guys that are still coaching somewhere else. But I think that they definitely need a younger coach who is more like motivated to bring their team up than a coach who's had a lot of experience like with success other places, because you can be successful other places, but what are you going to do whenever your back is against the wall with a team that's won 14 games in 2 years? So I mean, there needs to be like a youthful coach that is good to do a rebuild, and just try to bring them up. But Louisville definitely thought that they got Dusty May because they were about to have a press conference. I don't know if you heard about that one. But
I saw the pictures
they posted.
of that.
Yeah, they had the chairs out. They were ready to hire somebody, but it didn't happen because, like you said, they're paying 3 coaches not to coach them. But here is one that's relevant to us Kentucky fans because, of course, this is the talk around our state right now. Do you think the Calipari sees another year?
I do. $33 million is a lot to pay to buy out a legendary coach. Now, yes, he hasn't had the best 4 to 5 years as of lately, but here's my point. You're paying $33 million to buy out a coach, and then you got to pay for someone to come in that is not guaranteed to do a better job than what he's been doing. I mean, you look at, I think the top candidate right now for most people would be Scott Drew.
Right.
He went at Baylor, which is impressive. But outside of that, I mean, he's done. I think he's made the Elite Eight one time in his 11 years at Baylor. So it's like you're going to pay $33 million to buy out a coach who has practically done the same thing in the last 4 to 5 years to get another coach who has done the same thing.
He did win.
I mean,
he did win it all.
Yes, yeah. And then you got to factor in that once Cal leaves, I mean, his recruits are probably going to want out of their NLI and not come here and probably explore other options. And so it's probably going to be another 2 to 3 year rebuild.
Yeah.
Cal's 3 more years away from being able to get out of his contract and take the assistant athletic director role. So honestly, I think you give it those 3 years, let him go out for no money, and then take whoever you can get. I mean, I think you allow Cal to try and win the fan base back. I think he can still do it. I mean, I think what people have been saying on ESPN this past week is like you got to get that old school Cal back. Where he was tough, his teams defended, they were physical. You saw his change in offensive philosophy this year, and they were the number 1 scoring offense in America.
Mm-hmm.
Now it translates well on the defensive end, but he's got it in him to coach a team defensively. Now, for whatever reason, they didn't get it this year, and some players just aren't able to pick up on some things, and maybe this team was one of them. And I mean, another thing is like the college basketball is changing with NIL and the transfer portal, and these COVID years still coming through, and you got 18 to 19-year-old kids playing against 25-year-olds. I mean, there's a JUCO player coming in next year who's going to be a freshman, and he's 26 years old. And he's going to be graduating at 30. I mean, that's insane. So maybe it's that he changes to getting more players in the transfer portal than he does recruiting. We saw that with Kansas this year. I mean, Bill Self, outside of winning the national championship 3 years ago, for the last 5 years, he's been out in the first weekend, just like Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
He lost 11 games this year and probably had his worst roster he's had in a long time. But a lot of people aren't talking about it because he won a championship 3 years ago. So it's crazy how much a championship can, make you on the bubble or off the bubble of coaching. Right. I think most people aren't upset with the results with Cal as much as they're upset with how he's handled it. As far as the fan base, like, if we were to have lost and he would own up to it and not put as much of it on the players, then I think there would be a little bit less anger towards Cal.
100%.
So I think he could fix his approach in that way by putting a little bit more blame on himself. But at the same time, it's like someday these players have to want to win. I mean, a lot of the days, the players that we're getting, they're chasing a bag now.
Right.
And sometimes, you got to put some blame on the players, and it can't just all be on the coach. I mean, these players have to want to go out there and win. I mean, and you can say, well, it's on the coach to make them not play tight because, I mean, they look tight. Reed Shepherd had arguably his worst game of the year, and he looked like a shell of himself. And you can say, well, it's on Cal to make sure he's not tight, but these players have played in big time games all year long. So why are they now getting tight?
Mm-hmm. I definitely think some of the blame that is put on him should not be put on him because he's not playing, he's coaching. I mean, if you take some plays off, or if you go like whatever they shot from 3 wasn't good. I mean, and they try to blame Cal. I mean, that's not on him. I mean, Rob Dillingham not playing well, Reed Shepherd not playing well. Both guys are supposed to be projected top 10 picks. Cal's not playing. It's them. So, I mean, I hate to blame them for that, but, I mean, it is. But one question I have for you, do you with it seems like Cal is not. I mean, Cal does not have the best relationship with Barnhart. I mean, so do you realistically see him taking that assistant AD job, or like getting offered that, like if he like stays with Kentucky and does these last 3 years?
Well, Barnhart wouldn't have a choice to give it to him. It's in his contract.
Oh, right, right.
So, I mean, at the end of the 3 to 4 years, if he's still at Kentucky, he's guaranteed that spot. Um, I think Cal and Mitch have not had the greatest relationship the entire time Cal's been here. Um, Cal knows who he wants to talk with and who he wants to have a relationship with, and for whatever reason, that relationship isn't there. Um, from what I've heard on, just various, resources and from some people I know at UK, the money's there apparently by the donors to buy out Cal, and apparently it's up to Mitch as to whether he wants Cal out of there or if he wants to give him another year.
Mm-hmm.
Cal's the type of coach who he's going to want to coach, and he's going to pitch his idea to Barnhart to, give him one more year probably. So I don't think the relationship is there, and that's something that, probably needs to be fixed. I mean, you can't have a coach that doesn't communicate to the athletic director and vice versa about what's going on with the university and expect to be successful. And also, I want to piggyback off of what you were just saying a couple minutes ago with, like, these players. I mean, they shot 40% and above from three this year, and they played a zone team, and they had wide open shots multiple times, and
Right.
and they did not make them. And the players they've got to make those shots when they're created for them. In the second half, they adjusted well in the first 2 to 3 minutes, and they attacked the middle, and it was successful. And if you're Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham on the bench and you see that it's successful and you're the point guard, you have to continue that when you come to the game. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't game and try and force things on your own when something was working. And so I think that's on the players. The offensive rebounding. I mean, a coach can't go in there and tell you to have heart and effort and go box the dude out and put your butt on him. I mean,
Right.
if you're 7-1 going against a 6'9" player, put your butt on someone. Box him out. It's why he lost the A&M game. It's why he lost this game. I mean, if you take away they had 13 offensive rebounds, Oakland did. You take away half of those, most of their threes were scored on second chance points because you get an offensive rebound. Well, now you're out of position on defense and you're running around to get back because you got most people that are trying to get back on offense, trailing the play, and now they're running back to get back on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And you got teams shooting threes. Well, how's the rebound going to come off of a missed three? They always tell you long shots equal long rebounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as guards, you got to know that. And so I think the relationship needs to be kindled. I think they need to go to some, marriage counseling instead
Yes.
and get fixed. But something's got to be done about the relationship.
Well, some things back and forth. Like, first off, you talked about the donors a little bit. It sounds like they just want him out. But whenever it comes to Cal, I mean, Cal, I think it was before the SEC tournament, or it might have been afterwards. Whenever he arrogantly said, "What are they going to do? Fire me?" Like, you don't say that. I mean, even if you're someone like Tom Izzo or Bill Self, who no one wants to fire them, basically, and even if they said that, I mean, you're just like, oh, that's kind of arrogant. But I mean, that doesn't help in the situation. And then after the loss, Barnhart apparently, like, I mean, they asked him and he was like, we're gonna reevaluate like the future, or like, I mean, I don't have a decision now, or something like that. And along with that, KSR reported that I guess Barnhart is gonna make a decision by tomorrow, which that'll be interesting to see. But I will say, with your comment about the bigs and stuff. I know that, of course, March Madness is going on still, so you can't look too far in the future. But
Well,
Kentucky, Kentucky's got a dog coming in from overtime elite. I don't know if you've looked at Somto Cyril.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he looks like everything, every like aspect of a big that we've needed this year. But so no, go ahead.
We've missed, the Alex Poitrases, the DeAndre Liggins, just those people who had the dog and want to downright just go out there and be scrappy. I thought they had that with Adu Thiero, and I think his injury just hampered him this year.
Right.
But they need to get back to that, that mentality of just go in there and be scrappy. It doesn't matter what your size is. Go out there and just put a butt on someone. Go dunk on someone. Like, if I have the capability to dunk on someone, I'm not going up for a layup. I'm going for because
Yes.
I'm either a dunk on someone and get the crowd fired up, or I'm going to get fouled. I mean, they just played way too soft this year.
Mm-hmm. So my last Kentucky thing, and then we can move on from it. Realistically, how many do you think return?
How many do I think return or should return?
Both?
Both? Okay. I think that Adu will return. I think Bradshaw will return.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jordan Burks will return. And I think DJ Wagner will return.
Yeah.
Who should return? I think that DJ Wagner should return. I think Justin Edwards needs to return.
Right.
Bradshaw needs to return. Adu needs to come back. I think Ugo will come back and transfer, which I think he needs to do. I think he needs a new, just a change of scenery. I honestly think Reed Shepherd is ready for the NBA, but I would not be surprised if he came back.
He's making bank.
Being a Kentucky boy, and at the beginning of the season, his parents said that if he could come here and play for 2 years and be 1 year closer to a scholar, like to a degree, then that's more important to them than going to the NBA, because they already have the money. So it's not like he's playing Emily. And I think after this last game, I think it'd be hard for him to leave Kentucky the way that he played. I think the only one that there's no shot at coming back is Rob Dillingham, but I honestly think anyone else could come back. But I think those five that I named probably should come back.
Right. I think that's pretty similar to mine. There's one thing that I have thought about for a while is I definitely think someone like Justin Edwards should come back, and it's up in the air with him. But with someone like him, he could benefit so much from another year. One example that two examples actually that I think of guys that could have came back and probably should have, because they could have benefited from their draft stock, is Ty Ty and Chris Livingston, back-to-back years.
I think if they had hell, they probably would have.
Oh yeah, and because both of those guys are G League players now. They had aspirations of getting drafted. Yeah, they got drafted. And then it just went downhill. Whenever you're at the University of Kentucky, you go off and your draft stock goes up. And that's how it's showing with Reed and Rob Dillingham. But both of those guys, Chris Livingston averaged 8 points. And you had, Ty Ty had a pretty solid year, but he left on a bad note. And that's why he got drafted 29th. So I think guys will benefit from coming back for another year. Another one is Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson had a pretty decent showing, but and also he's been doing good in the NBA, but he got picked in the 20s. And so if you come back for another year, you've got great player development. You can bash Cal all you want. I'm talking about the whole fan base. I'm not talking about you. You can bash Cal all you want, but the player development with Kentucky is phenomenal, and it's because they're trying to prepare you for the NBA. And with that, you've got your strength and conditioning coach. I've been seeing his stuff recently. That strength coach is legit, and
Yeah.
along with the assistant coaches that have had experience, like I mean, they're gonna get you ready for the NBA. One example is PJ Washington.
Yeah.
PJ Washington had, I mean, he had a decent freshman year, but he finished on a bad note with that Kansas State game going 8 for 20 from the line. And so he came back, had a solid showing, and he got drafted, I'm pretty sure, in the lottery. I could be wrong. But I mean that's a prime example of one. So and with the others, I I sure hope that DJ and Aaron Bradshaw come back after having subpar years. Aaron Bradshaw's with Clutch Sports, which that's my only concern. But Clutch Sports should see that a year of Aaron Bradshaw gaining 20 pounds of muscle and having a better showing than he did this year of getting moved around constantly in the post should show that he he needs another year instead of going 50th to 60 in the draft. And DJ showed some decent signs here and there, but he's projected like in the 40s. Of course, Jordan Burks didn't really play this year a whole lot. I mean, he showed some potential. Hugo could, but should probably transfer, like you said, because you're going to have most likely, a year two Aaron Bradshaw, along with a beast in Somto Cyril, and along with other guys. And then I'm trying to think of the others. I mean, of course, with Reed is up in the air, but one, Reed had a bad last game, and that definitely dropped his stock a little bit because on the biggest stage you got to perform. And I mean, he's performed on big stages this year, but March Madness is probably the biggest stage. And so seeing that he shied away from that is definitely going to turn off some GMs. But yeah, it'll hurt that Reeves is gone because he's been so consistent. I mean, he had 50, 40, 90 stats along with averaging 20. But
Yeah.
and,
And you bring up Reeves. I mean, what about his improvement from year 1 to year 2?
right.
His first year he was a 3-point shooter, and then his second year he's an NBA all-around player who can score the three, he can score the mid-range and the floater, and he can score at the rim. I mean, and he improved his defense this year. I mean, he put himself from being probably overseas into probably a two-way player next year in the NBA.
Right.
I mean, his development should also be a testament for all the other kids that might think about coming back. And you also have the new rule over the last couple of years to where you can put your name in the draft, see where you need to improve, like Reeves did, and come back and do it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so valuable. I think a lot of players need to do that. And I mean, I know it gives fans heart attacks at first because they think like, oh my gosh, he's going to the draft and he's not ready. But I mean, I think one thing with that I want to transition to, and this will be a small thing. Did you see that the G League Ignite is getting scrapped after this year?
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think it's smart. I mean, it worked for the 3 or 4 years that it was here. But now with NIL here, I think it probably wouldn't be as successful anymore.
Right.
I think that's what it was, to allow these players to make money and then go to the draft. So I think it was good for them to be able to do that. They were able to develop there too a little bit. And I think now it's going to help. Now that it's gone, college basketball in the recruiting and transfer portal rankings, just so that now all the talent can be where it should be.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. I mean, it was basically a counter to college basketball because NIL wasn't a thing yet. But because NIL is a thing now, G League Ignite can still get players here and there. I mean, they have 2 top 10 projected picks right now in Matas Buzelis and Ron Holland. But besides that, they've won 2 games this year, I'm pretty sure is what they said. Like, they're like 2-40 or something like that. I mean, something just atrocious. So I mean, it's probably right that they scrap it.
Yeah.
One of the last things I'll go into is with watching these games so far, um, I'll two more things. One, besides, because we've talked about Oakland and NC State a little bit, are there any other big time surprises that, shocked you?
Um, I think especially after watching their game last night, the Duquesne over BYU. I think I had BYU in every bracket. I picked them, and and then you watch Duquesne lose by 30 to Illinois. It's like, how in the world did BYU lose? Well,
Right.
they could not hit a three to save their lives, and that's what they depended on this year. So I think that's surprising. But other than that, I think everything else was, kind of what we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Did you have James Madison win?
Yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
have the 16.
Yeah, I should have, and I. It's one of those where I beat myself up over it because I literally had James Madison at first, and then I switched it last second. And they're what, like 32-3 now, something like
Yeah.
that. Unbelievable. But my last question is, with the performances so far, are there any performances that have caused you to think like, oh, maybe this team can make it farther than I thought?
Um, I mean, I didn't really expect much from Iowa State this year, and then the way they came out and played, and now they're a 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of surprised me this year. I think Florida surprised me a little bit. I think had Handlogan not got injured, which that was a horrible injury
Horrible.
to see. Just hearing it, watching it on TV was pretty bad. But I think if they had had them, they would have had a better chance against Colorado. I think their size would have overrun them. But NC State, man, 5 wins in 5 days, and then you come out in the NCAA tournament and you back it up. That surprised me the most out of anyone.
Yeah. My main one that I want to mention is if Purdue kind of struggles against Utah State, Gonzaga's going to take mental notes and just go at them.
Yeah.
Gonzaga is hot. They came into this year kind of lackluster compared to normal. They're a 5 seed, and they're normally a 1 to 3 seed. And they didn't win their conference, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Another one was St. Mary's in that conference kind of hurt me because I picked Grand Canyon at first, and then my gut told me to pick St. Mary's. But anyway, Gonzaga coming in this tournament, 5 seed. Lowest it's been in a while. You think, oh, they're going to get upset by this hot McNeese team, or at least I thought that. They win by 20. And then they go to Kansas and beat them by 20. This team is hot. And they have experience every year in March Madness, so they're ready for the moment. You gotta wonder if Purdue, who I have making the Elite Eight, you wonder if Purdue, who is notorious for choking in March, is either going to lose or going to have a dogfight with Gonzaga.
And I wasn't very impressed with Purdue against Grambling either. Granted,
No.
They won by 30, but it was 10 to 15 points for most of the game, and
Right.
you're playing FDU, whose tallest player is 6'8". It's another FDU that you played, and
Right.
you only spread out the lead in the last 10 minutes of the game, but that's just because they were in foul trouble and they were just out of gas. They didn't impress me at all, so I'll be interested to see how they play here in an hour or two. Another team to watch out for tonight, I think, is A&M against Houston. A&M shot the ball poorly all year, and then they go and face Kentucky in the SEC tournament, and they're shooting lights out now.
Wade Taylor.
Yeah, I think they have the potential to upset Houston later tonight.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be a good game too. All these matchups are. And it's basically Christmas for basketball fans. I mean, in March. I mean, it's awesome to see.
Oh yeah.
One thing that is just like an irony thing that I was looking at is, of course, there's only been 2 number 1 seeds that have been beaten in the first round ever. One of them being Virginia against UMBC. The next year they win the national championship. What if that happens to Purdue somehow?
Yeah.
That could be an interesting thought. But
Yeah. One time it happens, it's luck. 2 times the trend. So
right.
See if maybe losing to a 16 seed isn't so bad after all.
Right. I mean, if you win the national championship the next year, you may have to do sacrifice.
Okay.
All right. So we'll wrap it up with: did you do ESPN or have you done CBS or?
I did ESPN this year. I did a bracket on CBS with my family, but part it was ESPN.
So, with our tiebreaker, with the national championship, who is in your national championship?
I had Houston and UConn.
Same. And how many points will be scored in this championship game?
I had 170.
Gotcha. I have 154.
Yeah.
So, well, we're not butting heads with our championship this time. We've got the same one, but we'll see if any of our tiebreakers help with the total points scored.
Yeah, I'll be. If it does come down to UConn Houston, I think that'll be one heck of a game.
Oh yeah, because both have been consistent, like I said, and both are pretty deep, and I mean both can shoot it or dish it down low. So I mean, we'll have to see.
Oh yeah.
All right, appreciate you hopping on with me once again. It was definitely a good talk. I mean, we talked everything from March Madness to coaching changes to even went on a rant about Kentucky for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, seems to be the case these last 4 years. So,
Right.
Always enjoyed talking about March Madness. It's my favorite time of the year.
Oh, yes.
So definitely going to enjoy it as much as possible, even with UK out, but won't
Right.
stop me from watching it, I would
Yeah,
say.
the interest drops a little bit, but
Yeah. Yes.
it is what it is. Well, I'll let you go. You have a good rest of your evening, and just keep watching these March Madness games.
Yes, sir. I'll talk at you later, man.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you.
All right, see you, bro.
Bye.